Welcome to Giants Latest. And the last week for Giants fans has been a roller coaster, let me tell you, starting with Matt Stafford and now ending with Aaron Rodgers. This quarterback competition is getting a little crazy for us Giants fans. So let's talk about where we're at right now, which is the Giants meeting with Aaron Rodgers on multiple occasions. So obviously Matt Stafford is out of the picture now. He is staying with the Rams, but Rodgers is going to be a free agent post June 1st. So the Jets have decided that they are moving on from Aaron Rodgers, and instead, we don't know what they're going to do, but let's talk about the Giants because Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, is not a good fit for them for a multitude of reasons. But in my opinion, I think one of the biggest ones is the fact that he's just really not that mobile. And we have seen when it comes to success with Dable's offense with the Giants, it relies on a mobile quarterback. And that's just not Aaron Rodgers. Is he an automatic upgrade to the quarterback position? Yes, of course he is, based on what we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years. There's no denying that. But I think you have to weigh a lot of the pros and cons here. And in my opinion, someone like Aaron Rodgers has a lot more cons than he does pros. Yes, he can still throw the ball. Yes, he's accurate. Yes, he's an MVP winning quarterback. However, the man is over 40 years old. He was making an average of $45 million with his Jets contract. So no one is going to try to convince me that Aaron Rodgers has A, been humbled based on his experience with the Jets, and B, is going to be okay with taking a cheap contract. Because I don't know where anyone is getting this idea that Aaron Rodgers has been humbled with his experience with the Jets. Did you forget that he did an entire Netflix documentary called Enigma that was all about himself? I don't buy anyone's BS that this man is humbled, because I'm going to tell you one thing right now. There's a lot of things that Aaron Rodgers is and is not. He is not humble in any way, shape, or form. So I don't think that is a good example to bring into the locker room. I understand that he has the winning mentality. And I think that when you bring anyone onto a team like the Giants that has been losing for so long, that is a necessity. But I just don't think that Aaron Rodgers is the guy. And when you want to talk about a production standpoint, and if you're a Giants fan and you finally, want this team to win, I think there's a little bit of an argument to be made that yes, Aaron Rodgers is the upgrade and he is a better quarterback. But also, what kind of success is he going to have in a system where it relies on a mobile quarterback? We saw the best year that Daniel Jones had with the Giants was the first year in Brian Dable's system. And you know what happened during that year? Daniel Jones rushed for over 700 yards, okay? That is one of the reasons why the Giants were as successful as they were in 2022. And I think that people forget all about that, but that's something that has to be talked about. And when you hear people like me say that Justin Fields is a good bridge quarterback, that is one of the biggest reasons why. Also, he's not a, conspiracy theorist psychopath. So there's that to do with it. But I'm sure the Rodgers talk is going to continue. Let's move along to the combine, because there were a couple guys, in all sense of offense and defense, that really help themselves out. And, we talked about the quarterback, of course, with Sanders and Ward not throwing and not participating in any drills, that, whether or not that was going to help them. And at some point, it can help you, like it did with Quinn Ewers. We need to talk about him because he had a tough season this year. And, he, I think, was a guy that maybe a lot of people were excited about. He was a first round recruit. Like, he came out of high school and was supposed to be this really amazing college quarterback. And, last year just really did not showcase him to the best of his ability. So I'm glad that he ended up throwing at the combine. I think when you look at this tier of quarterbacks, the Ewers, Dart, Milroe, those type of guys, that's what you want to see from the combine. And Dart did a really nice job in the drills. He was accurate. He was on time, great ball placement, got the ball out quickly. So I think Ewers did a really nice job. I don't know how much realistically that's going to impact. Like we always talk about, the tape speaks for itself, and that's what's most important, not doing drills in a closed arena where, there's no one coming at you and you don't have to read defenses and all sorts of stuff like that. So, I think take these things with a grain of salt, but with guys like Ewers and Dart, this is what you want to see. And Dart, the same thing, overall had a good combine. I think he helped his stock. Dart is one of those guys who seems like out of nowhere, he all of a sudden has climbed up the board. Like, he, to me, is what happened with JJ McCarthy last year, where, he had a good season and people were talking about him after the year, but it wasn't until the combine and this time of year where things really heated up for him. And I'm getting that same vibe for Jackson Dart. Like, I'm hearing things that, oh, he's going to go in the first round. And then you look at the grades from the experts and he's like a mid-second or early third round pick. So the thing with the quarterbacks is that always changes. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. But I do think that Dart did a nice job at the combine, and that was enough to improve his draft stock, like we are all hearing about. Now, let's move along to the offensive line, because obviously this is a must for Giants fans in free agency and in the draft. The offensive line needs some help. We all know this. So let's talk about right guard Alex Kappa from the Bengals, who was released on Monday. And, he's a guy that the Bengals brought in after they lost the Super Bowl and Joe Burrow was sacked a million times. They bring him in hoping that he's going to help them out. And, his career with the Bengals was, I think, not what anyone expected it to be. After dealing with an injury, he sort of fell off and really did not do as well as maybe he was projected or could have done as a right guard. I think if you can get him as a veteran minimum, I'm talking veteran minimum. This guy had a pretty good contract with the Bengals. I think by the Bengals cutting him, they saved around $10 million in cap space. So after that, in his performance last year, in no way, shape, or form would I be giving him $10 million. But if the Giants want to give him the vet minimum and just bring in some depth at right guard, considering we have literally no one, then I would be on board with this. And I'm not going into the season thinking that he's going to be the starter, but I'm going into it thinking, it's year 2 out of his injury, and maybe with a new scheme and, some help on his right side with Illuminor as the tackle next to him, that he's going to be able to take a step forward and maybe be serviceable. I'm not looking for a miracle here, but I think that he's a guy that the Giants should consider. He was not on the list of right guards that were going to be available in free agency. So when you see things like this and there are new guys that are released, we have to talk about them and weigh the pros and cons and see if it's someone that the Giants should bring in. And in my opinion, I would bring him in at least for a workout. I think that can't hurt. And again, see what he's willing to take if you can get him on a vet minimum, along with maybe a better starting right guard in free agency and then another guard in the draft. Like, maybe things are looking up and you can maybe, if we're lucky, have some draft depth at that position, which would be a real treat, let me tell you. Now, speaking of a position that the Giants don't have any depth at, it's quarterback. And I have to tell you guys, the more I hear about what is going on in the Giants front office and what they're doing, I lose faith in them by the day. And I really hate it. I really, really do. I want nothing more than for Joe Schoen and this front office to make some moves that are going to make me excited to be a Giants fan and to report on them and talk about them day in and day out for the next 7 months. Like, I want to be excited about them. I want to have excited things to talk about. And when I hear that they are in heated conversations with the Titans to move from 3-1, I am losing that faith. And listen, if they trade from 3-1 and they get Cam Ward, maybe I can have a little bit of renewed sense of faith there. But right now, I just can't have it. The things that I'm hearing are that the Giants really, really love Shedeur Sanders, and they think that he's not going to be there at 3, which is insane. And instead, they're going to trade up to 1 and get him. And this is why I was on Giants fans' butts when people were like, oh, beating the Colts game was so important. That win was a must. It changed the culture and blah, 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 and all that other BS people were trying to spew to make them feel better that we lost the first overall pick. This is why, as a fan, in week 17, you don't care about wins and losses unless you're headed to the playoffs. With the Giants, we're not. You care about the draft pick. And this is why I wanted them to have the first overall pick, which they would have had if they didn't beat the Colts. Because now, Joe Schoen is a desperate GM. We are seeing this with the Matt Stafford giving him over $100 million guaranteed for 2 years. He's 37 years old and injury prone. And then on top of that, they're talking about bringing in Aaron Rodgers, who's, I don't know, probably wants at least $30 million and is 41, even older than Matt Stafford. So, you see things like that. And then you're hearing that they're trading up with the Titans. And I don't like it at all. I can understand the theory behind it. And look, if Cam Ward is their guy, I think it's less likely that they would get him at 3. I think they have a better chance of getting Shedeur Sanders at 3. So be it. If Cam Ward is their guy and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get him at 1, then by all means do it. But for my God's sake, you better be right. You better be right, because I know that they're going to have to give up a first round in 2026. And I know that Joe Shane is fighting for his job here, but you cannot put all your eggs in the 2025 basket, because we need a good quarterback. And if you're giving up future first rounds, next year is a better quarterback class. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. And as much as I love Abdul Carter and I think that he would be a really, really good football player, especially on the Giants, I'm not willing to give up 2026 first round picks to get him. I'm just not. I'm willing to take the chance that he's there at 3. I feel very strongly that Shedeur Sanders is going to be there at 3. And if that's who they really want, then wait it out, because I think he's going to be there. But, if it's Cam Ward, to me, that's something different. But if they move from 3 to 1 and get Shedeur Sanders, I excuse me, I think I'm going to be all out on Joe Shane. And I hate to say it, because this season has literally not even started at that point, but it's just going to make me feel like there are a lot of desperate moves coming our way to win now. And I know fans are really sick of losing, and I get that, but a little bit of happiness now is not going to help us in the long run. We all learned that, right? From 2022. We learned that. And we learned it in 2023 when they won meaningless games in week 18, right? Like, as a fan, I want longevity. I want long seasons where November and December, I'm excited to go to Giants football's game because they have a chance of winning and they have a winning record. That's what I want. I don't care about old quarterbacks and about trading away our future so we can win 6 games this year. Does that make anyone feel like we're headed in the right direction? I don't think so. So I'm not feeling that optimistic right now, guys. I got to tell you, obviously, we still have plenty of time. We have 6 or 7 weeks before the draft comes, so we have a lot of time. Free agency is going to come first, and that is going to be really important. And it has to be a good one for Joe Shane. And I think that that's going to be our first inkling as to whether or not he is a truly desperate GM based on the moves that he makes. So stick around, because we have a lot more to discuss this offseason.